Hey, Bills Mafia. We know there's only one topic every day. All Bills, all the time. And now Matt Bovee and Sal Capaccio are going really deep, talking Bills all year long, because it's always game day in Buffalo.
All right, we're going to be really honest and transparent with everybody because it wasn't our fault. Technology happens. Matt Bovee and I recorded an entire episode on the final day of Bills mandatory minicamp from the Bills media room, literally at the same table, podium, backdrop that we had Sean McDermott on, where they do the press conferences, and nothing took because there was a Google Cloud outage that day, which impacted the way that we record and upload. But Matt, things happen, I guess.
Yeah, no kidding. But what a waste of our time. It was just a trial run for, I guess, this episode. So hopefully it's as good as it can possibly be. But we talked for what, 45 minutes about wrapping up mandatory minicamp. And then by the time we found out that what we did was not salvageable, it was a little bit too late in the evening. It was late in the week. And we just kind of looked at each other and we're like, you know what? Let's give ourselves a little bit of grace and just try and get back to it later next week. So here we are for, I guess, attempt 2 of our mandatory mini camp recap.
A lot's happened since last Thursday, including Father's Day. Did you have a great Father's Day?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I appreciate it. Just very low key, which I honestly appreciate. So we just kind of hung out at the house, had some family over. I think it's my 3rd Father's Day. So got some nice pajamas from my wife and daughter.
They go quick, don't they? I remember your first. I do. So
yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. It goes by like that. What'd you guys do?
A lot of baseball weekend. We had a travel baseball game late Saturday night, and then again on Sunday. And what's crazy is we thought the game was at noon out in Clarence, but the two coaches got their times mixed up. So we got a text in the morning said, "Hey, the other coach thought the game was at 10. How soon can everybody get there?" So we had to kind of scramble, which, you know, threw you off a little bit on Father's Day. The game started at 11. And then after the game, came home. The U.S. Open was in the weather delay. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to do this anyway, but we did it. I usually just say, like, hey, I just want to watch the U.S. Open. But you'll appreciate it. You know, I've been hitting my new driver and still getting used to it. So I said, hey, Max, want to go to the driving range? So we went there's awesome. And hey, no reason to plug other than to tell everybody. It's the driving range on Broadway where they have the ice cream. So that's where we went. It was amazing. And they gave free cones out on Father's Day for dads. So it was really cool.
Oh, that's cool. That's a really great way to spend Father's Day.
It was awesome. Yeah. So it was cool. So we hit a couple big buckets of balls, and Max isn't really a golfer, but he's an athlete. He just likes to hit it. So he just whacks it. And Dad, look, I can hit it this far. Let's try to hit it to the net. All that kind of stuff. We were doing all that stuff that went along with it.
You don't need to put anything else on his plate or your plate because you're already doing so much with him. Yeah. But if you could get, and I tell this to people all the time, if you could somehow convince Max, hey, buddy, I know it's not the coolest sport right now, but in 10 years, all you're going to care about is golfing with your buddies. And you want to be better than all of them. Yeah. Start kids young with golf. My daughter, if she enjoys it, I'm going to have her start as soon as she's able to even swing a golf club, because it's a win. I mean, she gets to start the game that hopefully she plays for her entire life early on. And then I get to go spend time at a golf course. That's incredible. I think that's why my dad wanted to teach me so early. It's like, I just want to get out of the house and go golfing. That sounds great.
I love it. So real quick side story to this. So Max is a switch hitter in baseball. He actually has been hitting both right and left-handed, but he's mostly been a lefty hitter. We realized he's actually a lot better than we thought right-handed. So we've been doing more of that. And then I said to him, you should try right-handed golf, but we don't have any clubs. I get to the driving range and literally we put our stuff in one of the bays right there. And there's a kid I went to high school with right there. Sal, what's up? I'm like, oh my God. We start talking. I tell him the story. He goes, well, you want to try my son's right-handed club? We were right there. So I said, Max, try hitting right-handed. Sure enough, the first one he hits right down the middle. I'm like, no way. Oh my God. Right. Then he's like, nah. Then it started going a little all over the place. He's like, Dad, it just doesn't feel comfortable. I'm like, that's okay. It's kind of cool though to see you do that.
Yeah, it's crazy that you said that, because I actually, when I started, didn't know what I was going to do, like which way I was going to play golf. And I'm pretty sure the only reason I golf right-handed is because my dad was right-handed and because he had clubs. I bat in baseball left-handed and I played hockey left-handed. So for me to golf right-handed doesn't make a ton of sense. Yeah, but I did. And that's how I played it now. So it's funny, like trying to figure all of that out when you don't exactly know what you're supposed to be doing.
But we had a lot of fun, and I hope everybody else did out there. Happy belated Father's Day to everybody out there. And thanks a lot for tuning in. And we apologize for not having an episode ready for you after mandatory minicamp. We did have one last Tuesday. And like we said, we did actually record one on Thursday. We just lost it. So we're going to try to recap and re-say everything we did in that episode even better this time around. We know what we said, so now we can kind of fine tune it a little bit, Matt. And I think we'll just start with kind of who impressed us at mandatory minicamp, what storylines we come out of camp with, looking ahead to training camp. I'll start with you. If you want to give me something on offense, something on defense, we'll start with offense. Maybe then we'll go to the defensive side. Who did you look at in offense and say, you know what, I'm really intrigued by what I saw, impressive, and maybe something to keep an eye out in training camp?
I don't want to step on your toes because I think we both talked about this player when we tried to record this the first time, but I thought Dalton Kincaid had a very good week, and it did with kind of a bang. He had arguably the most impressive day from any member of the Bills offense during the mandatory minicamp 3-day stretch that we were out there for. Now, these guys are not even in pads yet, and they're not tackling each other. So take everything with a grain of salt. But it was nice to see a player who the Bills need to see more out of make big plays. He had a fantastic contested catch in the corner of the end zone against Aaron Johnson. That's a really good player to make that play against. Then during 11-on-11 red zone work, he had 2 additional touchdowns on top of that. So listen, after the practice ended, Brandon Beane said he's put on weight. Maybe we're a little bit too critical of his game. I'm not here to tell you any of that stuff. I don't necessarily, from watching where I'm watching, notice a difference in size or physicality from Dalton Kincaid, but I saw him make plays, and they need a guy like that to make plays this season. So I think that was a really promising sign, at least on the offensive side, from my takeaway.
Yeah, I like that. And I thought he ended well as well. Had a really strong day, as you said. I'm going to go to the other pass catchers. There was a group of 3 that I really like for different reasons. Elijah Moore just kind of stood out because we hadn't seen him yet. And he shows up with a bang kind of in OTAs, is really good. And I just thought he carried that throughout the week. I thought that he really has had a very good chemistry with Josh Allen. I'm excited to see what Elijah Moore can bring once we get to training camp and see how he fits into this offense. I do think he could be somebody that could make some big plays for this team. And then Josh Palmer, I thought, was on an ascension all week, right? Like, not a guy we heard a lot from, but by Thursday it was like, okay, this is starting to come around a little bit for Josh Palmer. So I like that. And then the other one, and for this guy, it's the consistency that he showed last year, consistency he's showing this year, but he's kind of right there. And I don't really know what to do with him because I don't know if there's enough numbers, but Tyrell Shavers to me just continues to make plays. When I look up, he makes grabs. And Matt, they don't have anybody other than Keon Coleman, I guess, that has the kind of the size that he has, the length that he has. And I do think he offers something different, but I don't know if there's a spot for him on this team.
Was his really nice play against Max Hairston in minicamp, or was that in voluntary workouts the week before? They're all blending together, but he had a really nice play. Yeah. It might have been voluntary workouts, but we have noticed him on several occasions, which ultimately proves the point you were talking about, as just, would we say right now he's the front runner to be their 6th receiver? I feel like they've got a pretty defined top 5. Is he their clear-cut top guy for 6?
I think he is.
Ahead of Jalen Virgil?
Ahead of Jalen Virgil and ahead of Laviska Shenault, who I put in a different bucket, obviously. But the question is, would they keep 6 receivers? And if they did,
what about Caden Prather?
I don't think they'll. To me, Caden Prather screams practice squad guy. If you lose a 7th round pick to waivers, I don't think it's something you really sweat too much about. You know, it's like, okay, you know that it's hard for these guys to make it, but that's a developmental guy to me. So I don't think I see him cracking the 53.
Yeah, I would tend to agree, because he does have a skill set that's a little bit different, right? Like, you could make the argument, well, Jalen Virgil is a little bit too much like Elijah Moore, who's a little bit too much like Curtis Samuel, who's like Khalil Shakir. You know, it's just like you go down that rabbit hole. They're not obviously the same player, but I understand that Tyrell Shavers is a little bit more like Keon Coleman, and that's kind of it. You know, I guess you could say Josh Palmer a little bit from just the boundary standpoint. The only thing there is he's been around for a while. Don't you think for that job, you want to take the guy with maybe the most upside? And I don't even know who that is. I just don't know if that is Tyrell Shavers. I feel like you know what you're getting with him, right? You're getting a guy who can be reliable and who can stick around and be your 6th receiver and maybe pop down to the practice squad. But you don't know what Caden Prather is, right? Like, you have no idea. So I just wonder what they value more, somebody who can contribute on special teams and maybe earn a game day jersey, or somebody who's a little bit more of an unknown.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting watching this position throughout camp, because as much as we've talked about receiver and we know what happened with Brandon Beane on the radio and all of that, I think they do have a pretty deep receiving core. Maybe not the top end that a lot of people want, but I do think they have a deep receiving core. All right, on the other side of the ball, I'll start this time. The guy that really flashed and stood out to me, the local kid, Buffalo Joe. I think Joe Andreessen had a really, really strong spring going back to OTAs and through minicamp. And a lot of that is because of opportunity. And we both agreed on this. We both said, regardless of what happened this week, we had Joe Andreessen ahead of Bale Inspector anyway, because of Bale Inspector's lack of availability over the last few years. But his lack of availability over the last couple of weeks just underscored that. And then on top of that, Joe made plays. And the biggest growth I saw from Joe is, boy, Matt, his coverage ability was really good. Every time, I mean, he picked off Josh Allen for a pick 6. And look, he drops really well. He read the play. It's a crosser. He reaches his hands out. He gets his hands on it. He catches it. But other times I saw he would diagnose and he would get there really quick. I think Joe Andreessen took an ascension this spring, I should say. He's not a starter. That is Terrell Bernard's job. We understand that. But I would say it's a very important job considering the undersized Terrell Bernard and the fact that he's missed a couple games over the years.
Wouldn't you say right now he's the 4th guy on the depth chart as far as linebackers are concerned? The only players ahead of him are Terrell Bernard, Matt Milano, and Dorian Williams. Don't you think he's the next guy? Because I do.
I would say that. And I guess I don't want to go too far to say number 3 because Dorian Williams is was the leading tackler last year. Mm-hmm. But I mean, he's the backup middle linebacker and he's going to be calling the defense and he's important. And he actually has position flexibility. He could play well if they needed him to. I don't think they've trained him as much there. I know last year they did a little bit. I talked with Joe about this, and Dorian could probably also play the middle if he needed him to. But I think that's fair. He's the number 4 linebacker. But look, availability has become a big issue here with a guy like Balen Spector. I want to get to the other injuries in a minute, but I think Joe Andreessen gets the opportunity. And then once he's done his whole life, Matt, he's just knocked the door down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The thing that I keep thinking back to, though, is I don't want to get ahead of, not with Joe Andreessen, especially specifically. Last year or 2 years ago, let's say, we had no idea what Terrell Bernard was, and he was a higher pick, but we still don't know what Edouin Olafosio is. So before we collectively, and I'm not saying that we're doing that, but before we collectively start to forget about players who are still that early in their career, it is important to remember that they're still around, right? Like that those guys are still able to come in and potentially contribute. So I wholeheartedly agree with the praise for Joe Andreessen. I think he's got a role on this team. And I think right now he's certainly got a path to the 53-man roster again.
And he'll be a main special teamer too, obviously. Yeah. I do want to bring this point up. I don't think this should be lost on people. Regardless of what we think how the Bills have operated. At linebacker, they did not sign one single unrestricted free agent or draft one single player until Shaq Thompson was signed, which we'll get to later this entire offseason. That's it. They brought in one UDFA, Kenyatta Jenkins. They brought him in as a UDFA. They felt so good about their linebackers, Matt. They did not sign a player or draft a player.
Which is a nice little segue to a different position where there was an absolute overhaul, and that's the cornerback position. Now, the guy who I'm picking as my standout is one of the returning players. Christian Benford is so solid. He's just such a strong, solid player. Watching him practice, I thought the first day of mandatory minicamp, he was maybe the best player on the entire field. And then he's just always where he's supposed to be. Yep. Everything is so methodical. Everything looks so effortless. He's a different type of player than what Trey was in Trey's prime. But you always just were amazed at how simple and in command everything looked. It didn't look like they were taking a step out of turn, and everything was just kind of so in sync and smooth. And that's what I see when I watch Christian Benford practice. So for me, while Joe Andreessen was probably the more impressive player, because it's not necessarily what we were going into it expecting, Christian Benford just got paid a ton of money. He had some concussion problems at the end of last season. You wanted to see him come back and look like Christian Benford after getting all that money, and he did. So I'm really confident with his ability to take even another step, to go from being a great cornerback to a really great cornerback. And then that takes us to the questions across from him, because I think when we tried to record this last week, disagreed a little bit about who we thought was going to be the opposite starter from him.
Yeah. Before I get to that, let me say what I think has been most impressive about Benford to me. You've heard the saying and people have talked about it. A guy gets paid and kind of like, okay, well, I got my money, right? That doesn't always happen, but it happens. I think Christian Benford's been even better and more dialed in kind of from just the outside looking in of his preparation. And I'm not saying he wasn't a good preparer, but I mean, he's been here all off season at the facility, working hard. I saw him at the Micah Hyde softball game. You see him after practice. I saw him at the Bison's game, by the way, throughout the first pitch. He wrote a children's book. But I just think that there's just seems to be like hey, all right, I got paid. Now I want to be great. Now I want to be an all-pro, right? Like that kind of mentality, which I love about him.
We only get to see so much of it. Does it feel like there's a player who works harder than Christian Benford? He's always out there doing extra stuff. Always. Every single practice, Christian Benford was the last guy that came into the locker room. Now, we don't see what they do on their own or what they do before practice, but Christian Benford and Rasul Douglas were attached at the hip for the last year and a half once Rasul got here, working and doing extra work. So I'm not anticipating that that's going to change with Rasul gone. I just think that somebody else might be the one out there with him working.
And the other person who could be out there with him could be Tre'Davious White, who obviously is a great worker as well. We know that. That's a big reason the Bills brought him back. He's a tireless worker. He's proven that throughout his career since 2017 as the first draft pick of the Sean McDermott era since he became the head coach. And what we disagreed on, I believe, and you can correct me because I want to revisit this and let's talk about it here on this podcast. It's always game day in Buffalo, by the way. Thanks a lot. Sal Capaccio, Matt Bove. Download, subscribe wherever you pod. We appreciate it. And at Sal Sports on the YouTube channel, we are close to 13,000 subscribers. Hit that subscribe button. Throw us a nice rating, a nice review, whatever it is, and let's get to 13,000. So the way I look at it is I don't think it's Max Hairston's job to lose. I actually think he goes into camp as the number 2. I think at that spot, I think Trey White is the number 1 as the number 2 corner. But I do believe that Max Hairston will get every opportunity to win the job from Trey White.
How does he have to win it? Because this is, I think, what we disagreed on a little bit. Because I think, both agree that if you asked us right now, who's the cornerback opposite Christian Benford week 1? I think I don't want to speak for you. I think we would both say leaning towards Tre'Davious White.
I would. Absolutely.
But I feel a little bit differently about the Max Hairston elements to it than you do. I think this is what we disagreed on. So give me your reason why you would feel right now a little bit of the tie or the advantage goes to Trey.
Because I think that the Bills and how they run their defense and how important it is them to trust people and understand everything that's supposed to be going on, they don't want to have to be in a situation which, as much of the upside and everything that Max Hairston can bring from an athletic standpoint could be super enticing. You want to make sure that you're buttoned up, especially early in the season, and you don't get beat on a play where a guy just didn't recognize what he was supposed to be in coverage. He made a mistake. He bit a little too early, something like that. I think they want to be absolutely sure that that part of it is buttoned up. The high end, I think, will take care of itself. I think the low end is where they feel so much more comfortable right now about Tre'Davious not going to make a mistake. He might get beat physically, but you're going to have to beat him physically because he's going to know exactly what he's supposed to do and be in the right spot.
So your point actually also is an argument I can make for my point. And I don't think that you're wrong, but you saying that at the beginning of the season, they want to make sure that they're buttoned up and that they're solid and that they can trust somebody. My argument is that that's when you have the bit of luxury to kind of learn on the job. And you need Max Hairston to be a difference maker in December and January. So why not give him the reps early in the year so he can be the highest performing version of himself down the road? Because I think we know what we're going to get from Trey White, right? Like, he's going to know the defense.
So you're saying, I just want to say, you're saying basically live with growing pains because the long-term gain will be, you'll be better off.
If one position is holding you back, then obviously you make the change. But if you think you can live with the mistakes that a rookie cornerback makes, but you think he's your long-term answer, I want that guy in the field as soon as possible, right? Like, I want that guy being a difference maker and not another aging veteran cornerback getting taken advantage of in the playoffs like we've seen. Max Hairston might be the most athletic person on their defense already, right? Like, I don't think that's a crazy take. They need a couple athletic freaks on that side of the ball. Trey White is not that anymore. He is. I think
there's two questions though. Then let's say there's two questions about this though. Have we seen Max Hairston be that guy you're describing in OTAs and minicamp yet? I'm not quite sure we have. He got beat by Tyrell Shavers. In fact, a couple times. The other time, twice he was in great coverage, by the way, and got beat. I want to make sure. I don't want to down this kid. Like, he was in great coverage and got beat. I remember one time he was getting barked at by the safety. No. He's like telling him where to line up, right? Like, these are things that are going to happen. There's no doubt. And are we sure that Tre'Davious White is an aging veteran who might get beat late? Because he did get beat down the field by Elijah Moore once, I remember, from OTAs, but it's not like I see him getting torched around the field either. I think that he's looked the part of a guy that can still play in this league.
Yeah, I think that with Max Hairston, while he needs to win the job, and you saying that he'll have every opportunity to do so, I believe that. I feel like if it's even close, it'll be his. Okay. Like, I don't necessarily know if he needs to hit a home run or even a triple. Like, I think if he hits a single or a double, it might be his job. And they'll just live with what happens after that. And if it's really, really bad, if it's like the Kaiir Elam experience all over again, then they'll probably go to Trey White. And then if there's an injury, then they'll probably go to Dane Jackson just because they know what they have with that too. But
let me ask you a question. This before I forget, and I don't mean to interrupt you. I thought about this today.
Yeah.
If you gave Brandon Beane truth serum and he had to tell you the truth of this question, how do you think he would answer?
Max Hairston.
No. Question, different question. Sorry. I got the pregnant pause in there for a reason. I'm excited. Trying to build the drama. You ready? Okay. The question is, does how Kaiir Elam's tenure in Buffalo turned out impact how you treat Max Hairston?
That's a great question. I don't think it does. Because that felt to me, now we have the benefit of hindsight.
Mm-hmm.
That felt to me like them trying to fit, a square peg into a round hole from the minute that they drafted him. I think it was a panic pick because they wanted McDuffie. He gets taken. They knew they needed a corner. They just took the next guy available, and they were like, we'll make it work. And they never could make it work. I don't feel like this is that. I feel like this is a player they thought fit really well with what they tried to do, and they like the upside. So if we gave him truth serum, I don't think he would say it would, because I do feel like they're completely different situations. What do you think?
The reason I think about it is I wonder if he knows, hey, this was a swing and a miss and it didn't turn out. And even the other way, Matt, which is maybe he wants him to play early because Kaiir Elam didn't play early and it never worked out. Is there a scenario where Brandon Beane goes, I got to have this kid play early because I need to show that he can play and I want him to show he can play, going back to your original point before?
I just keep going back to, if you didn't think he was part of the plans right away, why would you draft him? Because there were so many other things that you could do in this draft. And
was there really though? Who could you have drafted that would start right away? That's the only true starting job that might have been available on the entire team.
I guess it depends, right? Like there were still pass rushers that were available that we thought made sense, or defensive tackles who maybe had a bit more upside than what TJ Sanders is, even though I really like the TJ Sanders pick. You draft a guy based off of his intangibles and his projection, and I feel like they're going for it with Hairston. Mm-hmm. And if you're going for it, you got to see that guy in the field. Right? Like you got to take advantage of these windows while you can. And it's always been interesting to me that they signed Benford to this extension and they draft a corner. So they have now kind of this position that in their minds they have figured out for the next several years. Like that's the way that you mirror the contract, right? You mirror a cheap, affordable rookie with a guy who's getting paid a decent amount of money. That way you're not completely overpaying at that one.
You have the rights to both these players for the next 5 years.
Yeah. Like that's a great position to be in. And if Hairston is what you hope he is, then you keep Hairston and you move on from Benford, or you keep him back as a more affordable, potentially veteran at that point in his career.
It's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out once we go to training camp.
You know what we were debating about a little bit in the last episode? What? It certainly did not get heated, but we were talking about, it was a little bit of that. We were talking about the other positions that had starting jobs up for grabs. And we were going over the safety position a little bit, and whether we both said we think it's Taylor Rapp and Cole Bishop, and then like kind of how we, I guess, disagreed a little bit on what happens after them, and if Jordan Hancock's involved here, or if this is strictly Damar Hamlin, or if Damar Hamlin should be the front runner, and kind of how that all pieces together. I feel like that's what we were talking about.
Well, let me change it around here instead of going all the way through there, and we can touch on that. How concerned are you about Cole Bishop not being available during minicamp? This is a player that, even by the Bills' own admission, was really set back by him missing training camp last year, right? The majority of it. I mean, he got hurt, I think, in training camp. And that was a job that maybe he could have wound up taking and winning. But he missed so much time, it was wound up being Damar. And I mean, I remember during July and August telling people, I was on WGR telling Show Up with the Bulldog every day, guys, I think Damar Hamlin's going to start. I don't know about that. Yeah, he wound up starting because he just got that opportunity, and Cole kind of couldn't make it up, and for some reason Mike Edwards never worked out. Doesn't Cole Bishop need to be on the field again? Because I mean, I'm a little concerned about his lack of availability after last year, because I'll say this, it was never to me a question if the Bills were going to draft a safety early. I did not think it was. I remember that day when all these national pundits were putting Malachi Starks on the Bills.
Malachi Starks, yep.
And I'm like, it's not happening. The Bills just spent a second rounder last year on Cole Bishop. They project him to be the starter. And oh, by the way, they love Taylor Rapp. He's clearly starting. And the only way these guys aren't playing is if it's injuries. But here comes the injury now for Cole Bishop during this last week.
My pushback on that when it was happening was it wouldn't be that. I guess it wouldn't have been. It might have been an indictment on Cole Bishop. Now, you don't give up on a player that early, right? But it's not like you're married to Taylor Rapp for the long-term future. And if you think that Starks was that good of a player, you could have had him and Cole Bishop be your safeties into the future. But that didn't happen. It is very concerning to me that Cole Bishop is not on the field. I think that is, once again, the position that I am the most concerned about when it comes to the Bills. And the fact that we're talking about that for the second straight season, after it was the most concerning position last year, is even more concerning than it already was. Like, it felt like this was a position that they needed to solidify. They didn't, because they were betting and banking on big-time growth from Cole Bishop. And Brandon Beane has said they have seen it, but we haven't seen it yet. And it just feels strange to me that we're going into another training camp with all of these questions at a position that really stunk for them last year. It was not. It was, would we agree? It was the worst position on their roster last year, probably from a production standpoint. I liked Taylor Rapp's game, but there was a big drop-off. And it's not like Taylor Rapp was some all-pro or anything like that.
I think so. I think I don't know if that's, I guess that would be fair. Maybe defensive tackle. It was kind of disappointing last year, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, it was. It was. That's probably a good point too. I mean, you could even say edge rusher. It was something on the defense. That is
I almost said tight end, but I guess, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, Dalton Kincaid was the second leading targeted guy, I think, right, when it was overall. Let me see. I want to put this up on the screen real quick because I want to. Here we go. All right, for everybody who's listening at home or listening and not watching, I'm putting up on the screen the Bills safety room. Here we go. Taylor Rapp, Cole Bishop, Damar Hamlin, Cam Lewis, Derek Forrest, Wande Owens. I put Jordan Hancock down, and he's in yellow because he's a slot corner safety. So is Cam Lewis, by the way. But Jordan Hancock is kind of learning both positions right now. Let's just say Cole Bishop, once again, just can't seem to stay healthy and get on the field. It's Taylor Rapp and who?
Derek Forrest? Is that crazy? I don't even know if he makes the team.
I don't think it's crazy.
I don't even know if he makes the team.
I think he's in the mix to be a true backup safety and a real special teams player.
Yeah, but then how many safeties are you keeping? If we think Derek Forrest makes the team, Rapp's making it, Bishop's making it, is Hamlin a shoo-in to make the team?
No.
You don't think so?
No. Minimum deal, basically, to come back, veteran minimum deal.
Who is more likely to make the team, Damar Hamlin or Derek Forrest?
Derek Forrest.
Really?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, I don't know if I agree. I'm not saying you're wrong either. I'm thinking from the Bills standpoint. I think I agree with you. I don't know if the Bills feel that way. I feel like the Bills.
No, I think the Bills do. That's why I say he's more likely to make the team.
Yeah, I just feel like their actions, they started Damar Hamlin basically all last season.
Okay, wait a minute. Let's talk about their actions for a second. All right. They went out and signed Derek Forrest to a close to $2 million deal in this offseason. That was even before they re-signed Damar Hamlin, who they let go, basically gauge the market in free agency. I think that speaks louder.
That's true. That's true. I'm always maybe a little bit too quick to go back to this guy knows the system, this guy knows the defense, and that matters to them because
he did play for Ron Rivera,
which I know is a similar thing. The Sean McDermott tree, Andy Reid tree, not the Sean McDermott tree. His tree is not that big yet, but you know what I'm saying. So yeah, I don't know. I think that it's the most interesting position as a whole as we go into training camp, but the defensive line is the most impactful position that they need more out of.
Are we both in the same boat that Cam Lewis is pretty much a lock to be back on the team?
I don't think so.
Okay.
You think so? I think 80, that's
at
what
least
they're
80%.
attempting.
I'd say at least 80%.
I think that's what they're hoping Jordan Hancock is. A versatile defensive back who's younger.
Could he take his job? Sure, as that player. I also think, and I've said this since the draft, and I don't have to be right about this, I also think part of the reason you draft Jordan Hancock is to make sure he can play one of those positions really well, and therefore Cam Lewis can play the other position really well.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. That's a really good point. Jordan Hancock, to me, I always am going back to, I say always, like this has been going on for months. This literally happened last week. The way Bobby Babich talked about him and how he said they have a very specific plan for what they want from him was really interesting to me. Because I don't know if that means they just have a position that they like him the most at, and if that's the safety, or if they think he could be, the eventual either backup or replacement down the line to Taron Johnson at nickel corner right now. I don't know what to think, even though I do think right now that's Cam Lewis.
So we talked about Cole Bishop with injuries. There's been quite a few other guys that have been banged up that missed some time this week. Damar Hamlin's one of them, by the way. And we just went through this, and he didn't even play all week. Same thing with Joey Bosa. Shaq Thompson, the newly signed Shaq Thompson, we didn't really touch on him. We'll see what he can bring. If he's got position flexibility to the linebacker spot, maybe that's somebody who figures into the mix on the back end. We'll see what that happens with him. But other injuries, the good news is, though, Matt, Brandon Beane told us after Thursday, none of the injuries, he said, knock on wood, he knocked on his head when I asked him. He said none of the injuries should have any impact on guys starting training camp.
And it was extra encouraging the way Brandon Beane talked about Joey Bosa, because I think that would be the most notable injury the Bills have dealt with. Now, there's been some video posted from people like my colleagues, Dom Tibbetts, and then other people at different stations of Joey Bosa, like working on legitimate pass rush stuff, not just standing off to the side with a band on his legs and stretching. So that's a good sign with Joey Bosa. And then with Max Hairston, it just being kind of a small tweak, as they called it. I think that's also a good sign. And then he signs his contract. That's that's one benefit of us getting pushed back a couple days.
That's right.
That he signed his contract. And so I think to Deion Walker, so a couple now guys under contract. Is there anybody left?
Only TJ
Sanders?
Typically, I don't know why every year it's like the second
always
rounder.
the second round guy.
It's
always the second round guy.
Yeah. There's something the way the contract language falls for guys. It's the second round guy. TJ Sanders is the only one. But I'm glad you brought that up, because we did spend quite a bit of time Thursday talking about, hey, Max Harrison's okay. He's going to be all right. And now we're kind of past that anyway. But it's just a little tweak. And obviously that was something that we were monitoring a little bit. All right. So let's move on a little bit. Unless there's something that you wanted to get to about the team itself from minicamp before we go on to Highmark Stadium.
No, I think I'm good.
Okay. We do not have, as of this recording, training camp schedule. We do expect it to open on July 23rd as the first practice. That's not state secrets, folks. That's just doing math because of the CBA and the way it works. You go back, that would be the 46 days would be the first day start of camp would be July 23rd, report date July 22nd. And of course, Hard Knocks will be on hand too with the HBO and NFL Films cameras. Okay. Matt has a series that started tonight, right before we recorded this episode. It is called 52 Years of Fandemonium. And it is on Channel 7, WKBW TV, talking about Highmark Stadium. I've introed it, but you can fill in the blanks and give the details. Tell everybody what this is about and how cool it was for you.
Well, thank you so much for the platform, the opportunity to plug a little project we have been working tirelessly on. Before I get started, I want to shout out producer Julia Skevel and then photographers Kevin Minorzik and Garrett Vautour for all of their hard work on this. The four of us have kind of started this for the last 2 months, and we had our first episode that ran tonight, and it was super cool. So essentially what we did was about 2 months ago, I was sitting in the sports office. It was a quiet time with what was going on, and I was thinking to myself, we really need to give the stadium a proper send-off. There's two things in Western New York that people love: the Buffalo Bills and being nostalgic. This is an opportunity to do both of those things. I was trying to think about when it made the most sense to do it. And I was going back and forth with somebody at work. And they said, you should do it when Bills' interest is at its highest during the season itself. My argument to that was, it's not going to get the proper kind of send-off because we're going to be talking about games. We're going to be talking about like storylines on the field. And I wanted to do it while this could really be the focal point. So I literally said, listen, let's start a 7-part series. We're Channel 7. Let's write down a bunch of names on a piece of paper, and let's try and get interviews with all of these people about their favorite memories inside the stadium. So I just started writing down names from different eras. And it was like, okay, it would be great to get Joe Ferguson, Joe DeLamielleure. All right, what about, we got to get Mary Wilson. If we're going to get Mary Wilson, we got to call Marv Levy. Hopefully he answers the phone. Well, you got to talk to Jim Kelly. You got to talk to Frank Reich. You got to talk to blank, 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 blank. And so it just kept on doing that. And we kept on getting help from people and doing all of these interviews, which was incredible. So the first episode aired tonight. You can watch the entire thing. We're saying this on Monday night on June 16th. You can watch the entire thing right now on WKBW.com. If you would prefer to watch it on your television, you can download the WKBW app for free on your TV and then watch it that way. And we will be airing a new episode for the next 6 weeks now, all the way through training camp. So Sal was talking about how training camp is expected to start on July 23rd. The last episode of this series will be July 28th. So it's perfect that it kind of runs right along with the training camp schedule. We'll probably be doing like live shows at that point from training camp. And then we'll have preseason games to talk about and actual football to talk about. So it's been a joy putting this together. And the stories have just been so awesome from everybody involved.
I love it. I love it. I was watching, I only got the last 10 minutes of your first episode. So I'm going to go back and watch it. And I saw Joe DeLameliere talking about kind of the earlier days and what it was like kind of being a player in that stadium. And you know, Joe DeLameliere played for not only the Bills, he's a Hall of Famer, played for the Cleveland Browns. And he referred to, you know, Bills fans as the greatest fans in the world. And one thing that stood out right away was just how much the fans in this stadium matter so much more than fans in many other stadiums.
That has been a sentiment shared to me by a lot of people, that it has always been, it's not because of the stadium itself. It's a very important building, but it's because of the people who have filled that stadium. And that is why it has been such a memorable and special place to so many people. I wholeheartedly agree. You know, we're unique. We're two Western New York natives who have grown up and spent our lives in some capacity tied to this football team, you know, as kids and as young adults, rooting for them, now working, you know, and covering the team and all the stuff that we get to do that we're so fortunate to do. So it's been cool to hear all of those different perspectives. And I think the validation that it gives fans when they listen to these players like Joe DeLameliere, like he played in Cleveland. Cleveland is another great fan base. And for him to unequivocally say there is no fan base like the Buffalo Bills, I think carries weight. He's a Hall of Fame offensive lineman. So it's cool to hear these guys share their stories. They had a great story about how they got stuck in traffic because of the Erie County Fair, the first ever day the stadium was opened.
Oh my gosh.
I also didn't know that the first ever play inside that stadium was a kick return against the Bills. Like it feels like
the Washington then Redskins.
Yes, Herb Mulkey was the guy's name who returns the opening kickoff.
I'm sure you've talked to a couple of people who were there, right? Because I know one famous broadcaster who was there.
Who's the famous broadcaster? You know,
John Murphy.
There? Oh, John Murphy was there as a fan?
John Murphy was walking into that stadium with John Beeline when that kick was happening.
That's cool. That's a great story. That's a great little anecdote.
Yes.
You know what's funny is, you know, I don't think he would. I reached out to Murph, but Murph's voice is obviously not what it once was because of everything. So we talked a little bit on the phone as he was getting. What was he just inducted? Oh, the Buffalo Sports Hall of Fame. Greater Buffalo Sports Hall of Fame. He just got inducted to. So shout out to him. But we were talking and just sharing some stories because, you know, there's only so many sports directors in the history of Channel 7. And I wanted to try and include as many of them as possible. So that would be Murph. That would be Bob Kaczynski. That would be Joe Buscaglia, myself, Jeff Russo, and then the late Rick Azar. So, you know, wanted to try and get everybody involved if I could. But no, I did not hear from him in the episode. But I did hear from Sal Mayorana, who was there as a fan. And Sal Mayorana, as he always does, delivers with, you know, the first bite. the first quote in the show tonight was, "Yeah, I was at the rock pile. That place was a dump. It was about time that they moved out of that place." And I'm like, oh, Sal, I just love him so much. He just says it like it is.
I don't live far from the rock pile. And when I have friends come to town from out of town, I take them there and I show them. I said, that's where OJ ran. That's where the movie The Natural was filmed. And they're like, wow, that's crazy. And that's cool. And they get out and they take pictures of the facade and how cool it is, right? All of that. You know, you asked me and I'm in and I'm honored that you asked me to be a part of this series. And you asked me for some memories and I gave you a couple, you know, memories of my own. Going to a game 51-3 is my favorite, my biggest memory. Camping out for tickets. I have a great story I shared about camping out.
Yeah, it was great. It's in the next episode.
I appreciate that. I don't think I told you this. I think I might have told you this personally, but I don't know if it's on the air. But one of my best memories ever is I played in that stadium. I had an interception inside that stadium. I played for Cleveland Hill High School in 1989. We won the Section 6 championship against Salamanca. We were up 16-14, and I picked the ball off on the final series of the game to seal it. And that was one of my greatest memories ever.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. And then you said that was 89?
89, yeah.
Oh, that's sick. You know what's funny? So that's a sweet story. This is what's funny, but equally frustrating. we have 7 episodes to do this. I could do 25. I could do 27 episodes.
No doubt.
Because there's so many little layers that I'm afraid we're not going to get to. Because one of those layers is, how about all of the events inside that stadium that weren't football?
100%.
Concerts.
Right. Oh my gosh, that's right.
The Winter Classic.
Yes.
Like, there's so many stories that I would love to tell, but I feel like when you've only got this 7 episode window, maybe we'll get back to it and, continue this in some capacity down the road, because so many people have been like, I really hope you talk about the Metallica concert, or there better be a Winter Classic episode, or the high school football games that have been played there, or the other sporting events that have been played there over the years. It's a football stadium, but it's more than just that.
No doubt. Metallica with Faith No More and Guns N' Roses.
Oof. That's a heavy hitter lineup.
I mean, and we're talking like 1990, 91. It was 91. That's crazy, right? Think about that lineup at that time.
Yeah, and it's been really cool. I think I told you on the radio earlier today when we talked Monday morning. So I appreciate you having me on, and then Jeremy and Joe had me on as well. I think my favorite part about this so far has been that everybody can go back to a different moment or point and go, this is my favorite memory because, and then they give an answer, and then the story that they have tied to it. Because, everybody can say, or a lot of people can say, my favorite memory was the 51-3 game or the comeback game. But then when they give you the reason why, then it becomes so special and unique to them. My favorite game was the 51-3 game because my buddies and I were going to Tampa the next week if they won, and they did, and it was the best trip of my life, or whatever. Or my favorite game was the comeback game because I said I was going to stay until I finished my beer. And then BB caught a pass down the sideline, and all of a sudden they were right back in it. So it's cool to hear all of the little extensions and branches that go off of the stories. So it's been a joy to put together. I'm so happy because we're recording this at 9:00. The first episode aired like an hour ago, and it has been so well received that if you see me looking off to the side, my phone is blowing up. So it's awesome. It's really gratifying.
Yeah.
But it also makes me that much more excited to continue with this. legitimately, since I talked to you on the radio earlier today, I've set up 4 more interviews with other people who I want to fit into the series.
Oh, that's amazing. By the way,
notable people, by the way, notable people who have said oh, I want to be part of this now.
Oh, that's amazing. A quick side story to that playing in the stadium. This was the old turf, and I have somewhere in this house a piece of the old turf. We're talking the original stuff that was, I'm telling you, Matt, it was like concrete playing on this. Okay. Mm-hmm. And to lead up to the game, we practiced at UB's old stadium, which is now where the Hill is. It's not the new stadium.
Yeah.
At the stadium now. At the same turf. Matt, I would come home, my knees were bloody every night because of this turf. And I'm like, how do these guys play on this? It was like concrete every day. It was unbelievable.
Daryl Talley had a great soundbite to a question that I asked him for this series, where he said playing on the turf then was a lot like playing in the parking lot.
Yes.
Where it was a weapon if you used it the right way.
Oh my God.
And I was like, yeah, that's crazy. That's
terrifying. The painted spots were even harder, like the helmet and the end zones. The helmet was even harder. And I'm not kidding. I'm knocking on some wood here. It was like that. It was like falling on that. But I remember my knees were bloody getting ready. But anyway, that's just a side story to the stadium and the changes that it's gone through over the years. I mean, come on. The famous picture of the goalpost being torn down in '88 after they beat the Jets. In the back, there's a big Marlboro sign. You don't see that anymore at any stadium with the smoking man.
Yeah, and even when they tore the goalpost down in '80, it's we only have, so one of the things we ran into, and listen, the series has been awesome. There's a very limited amount of video that we can show because any video shot during a game inside the stadium is owned by the NFL.
That's right.
So then to use that video and put it online would cost me basically my house. So we're not going to basically do that. So we've leaned a lot on just incredible photos, and then also a lot of file archive video that we have at Channel 7, and there's a lot of it. But when we started posting about this, some guy reached out, was like, I have these incredible pictures on film of when they tore down the goalposts. Can I send them to you? I'm like, yeah, dude, you can send them to me. So that's been another cool part too, that all of these people are sharing little things that they have that they cherish to have incorporated into this series. This is going to be something we talk about for the next 6 months. We're in June. This place is going to only be open for 6 more months. We're going to talk about it for a while. Just admittedly kind of wanted to get ahead of it.
I love it. It sounds awesome. How about this, everybody? Drop us a comment about your favorite memories inside the stadium. Drop us a comment inside the YouTube link that you're watching or wherever that you comment on in the podcast form, whatever it is. Drop us a comment about, your favorite memories inside the stadium. On top of that, make sure you tweet us at Matt_Bove, at Sal Sports. Also, make sure, letting everybody know once again, you're subscribed to me on Twitter as well. It's like $3 a month and you get extra content. I put out extra videos during OTAs and minicamp for people, just for extra stuff that's not filling up everybody else's timeline, that we're doing all this crazy stuff, and also extra access to me. We're doing spaces, private spaces, some giveaways, but do that as well. And then go watch the series, check it out online, WKBW TV, YouTube for Matt, and check out all their platforms there, and then comment on it.
Real quick, it won't be on YouTube, not right away.
Oh,
so
okay.
It'll be on WKBW.com and the WKBW app. The entire thing, all 7 episodes, will be posted on YouTube after they have aired on television. So eventually they'll be on YouTube, but for right now, for the next 6.5 weeks, you'll have to go to the WKBW app, which, I mean, it's free. It's not like this is costing you anything. It's free that you could download and then watch it on your phone, your laptop, your TV, wherever you want to watch it.
Last year, the Bills sent out the training camp schedule on June 17th. Tomorrow is June 17th. We just recorded this one on June 16th. I don't know if it's going to be the same day they're sending it out, but it did come out on June 17th last year. So I think we'll have something to talk about the next time that we're together.
Yes. Let's try and do another thing this week that hopefully does get saved and recorded. I am off starting today.
Okay.
For a nice little 5-day vacation.
Well,
I'm not going.
Take your time off. I can whip something up with some people.
Sal, we're never off. Like, when you're on vacation, you still do this. When I'm on vacation, I still do it. We're never
I'm going to be in Italy, though. I mean, I feel bad.
True.
So I'll be in Italy starting July 9th. So you're going to have to kind of do without me. I can try it in Italy if the times match up. It's fine.
We did it in Australia when you were in Australia.
Actually, I have a great idea. We should try to do this. I will be with a bunch of Bills fans in Italy. This is the whole Go to Italy with Sal Capaccio trip promoted on WGR. We have like 20 people going, and most are big Bills fans. We should definitely try to do something in Italy with some Bills fans behind me, at least for a little while. I can log in.
I will sacrifice whatever the time difference is to make it work on your schedule. So if you want to do whatever time that happens to be in Italy, and that means I got to wake up at 3 a.m. to hop online, I will. My only hope, I hope and pray, that you get to see more of Italy than the inside of a hotel room, like that one trip that I had where I got COVID. So I hope that does not happen to you.
Travel Stories with Matt, to a podcast coming to you. He's had plenty of them. In the meantime, thanks a lot for tuning in once again. Make sure you download, subscribe at Sal Sports on YouTube. We appreciate everybody. Thank you so much once again.